Number 1. The Black Shuck Skull, a canine omen of madness. In the shadowed lanes of medieval East Anglia, villagers whispered of a hound unlike any other, a beast whose eyes burned like coals and whose howl preceded death itself. Known as Black Shuck, this spectral dog terrorized coastal towns for centuries, its appearances often linked to sudden illness, unexplained disappearances, and fits of violent delirium. But it wasn't until 1848 that the legend took physical form. During a violent storm, the tower of Holy Trinity Church in Blythburgh collapsed, revealing a charred canine skull wedged in the masonry. Locals claimed it was the remains of the demon hound itself, slain by holy fire during its last rampage. From the moment the skull was unearthed, witnesses reported overwhelming dread, auditory hallucinations, and nightmares so vivid they blurred the line between dream and waking reality. The skull passed through a series of owners, each meeting grim fates. One merchant jumped from a third-story window screaming about eyes in the walls. Another was found catatonic, muttering in tongues no linguist could identify. Modern analyses suggest the skull belonged to a large dog, possibly a mastiff, yet carbon dating yields inconsistent results, some tests placing it in the 12th century, others inexplicably pegging it to the late 17th. Even more troubling are the electromagnetic anomalies recorded near the relic. Compasses spin wildly, digital devices crash, and EEG scans of those who hold it show synchronized theta wave spikes identical to patterns observed in temporal lobe epilepsy, a condition closely tied to religious visions and paranoid psychosis. The current whereabouts of the Black Shuck Skull remain disputed, though rumors persist of a private collector in Essex who keeps it buried beneath layers of lead and salt, visited only under a waxing moon. Those who have seen it say it shouldn't exist, not because it's fake, but because its very presence seems to warp reception, as if reality itself rebels against its existence. Number 2. The Dybbuk Box, a vessel for possession. In 2001, a seemingly unremarkable wine cabinet surfaced at a yard sale in Portland, Oregon. Carved from dark oak and inlaid with crude Hebrew script, it bore no manufacturer's mark, only a faint scent of sweet rot and burnt hair. Its buyer, Kevin Mannis, soon discovered the box's previous owner had been a Holocaust survivor who claimed it contained a Dybbuk, a malicious spirit from Jewish folklore that latches on to the living, feeding on fear and unraveling sanity. Within days of bringing the box home, Mannis experienced night terrors, sleep paralysis, and auditory phenomena, whispers in Yiddish, the sound of fingernails scraping wood from inside the sealed cabinet. His mother, after briefly touching it, suffered a stroke and in her final lucid moments described a man with no eyes sitting on her chest. The box exchanged hands several times over the next decade, each custodian reporting escalating psychological disturbances, paranoia so acute it triggered violent outbursts, obsessive rituals involving mirrors and salt, and sudden fluency in languages none had studied. One owner attempted to destroy it with an axe. The blade shattered on impact, and he was later institutionalized after claiming the box spoke his dead daughter's voice. Scientific scrutiny revealed anomalous mold growth inside the cabinet, biological matter that defied classification and emitted low-frequency vibrations measurable only by specialized seismic equipment. Thermal imaging showed persistent cold spots radiating from its surface, even in controlled environments. Attempts to open it fully have consistently failed. Hinges rust shut minutes after exposure to air, and locks re-engage without human intervention. Though now reportedly sealed in a climate-controlled vault in upstate New York, the Dybbuk Box's influence appears undiminished.
email correspondences from its current keepers, anonymous archivists who communicate only through encrypted channels, describe unexplained power surges, phantom scribblings on nearby paper, and the recurring appearance of the Hebrew word shikor, drunk or intoxicated, etched into walls. More chillingly, EEG studies of those exposed to it, even via photographs, show abrupt disruptions in the prefrontal cortex, the brain region governing rational judgment and emotional control. Whether the box houses a spirit, acts as a psychic antenna, or functions as a focal point for collective trauma remains unresolved. But one fact endures. No one who has held it long enough to hear its voice has ever fully recovered their mind.
Number 3. The Cursed Mirror of Myrtles Plantation. In the humid gloom of Louisiana's Myrtles Plantation, tucked behind moth-eaten drapes in what was once a slave quarters turned guest bedroom, hangs an antique mirror framed in warped cherry wood. To the untrained eye, it appears merely aged, its silvering clouded, its surface marred by vertical streaks resembling handprints. But those who gaze too long report a subtle wrongness, reflections that blink out of sync, peripheral shadows that dart just beyond sight, and the unmistakable sensation of being watched from within the glass. The mirror's origin traces back to 1834, when Clark Woodruff commissioned it as a gift for his wife, Sarah. Shortly after its installation, Sarah and 2 of her children fell violently ill and died within days, a tragedy blamed at the time on yellow fever, though no other household members fell sick. Local lore insists the mirror was crafted by an enslaved woman named Chloe, who, after being punished for eavesdropping, baked poison into a birthday cake intended for the family. When her act was discovered, she was hanged from an oak tree, her body left to rot as a warning. Before her death, she allegedly cursed the mirror, vowing that death would always stare back. Over the decades, at least 12 documented suicides and unexplained deaths have occurred in the very room where the mirror hangs, each victim found facing the glass, often with expressions of abject terror frozen on their faces. Photographs taken near the mirror frequently reveal ghostly figures, most commonly a woman in a green headscarf, while digital recordings capture distorted whispers in Creole French, pleading, "Laisse-moi sortir," let me out. Parapsychologists have documented intense electromagnetic spikes localized to the mirror's surface, strong enough to interfere with pacemakers. More disturbingly, infrared analysis reveals heat signatures emanating from within the glass itself, pulsing in rhythms that mimic a human heartbeat. Visitors who touch the mirror report sudden vertigo, fragmented memories that aren't their own, and an overwhelming compulsion to step through. One paranormal investigator, after spending only 47 seconds alone with it, was found hours later in the plantation's courtyard, clawing at his own eyes while screaming that she's pulling me in. Despite countless attempts to remove or destroy it, including one owner who shattered it with a sledgehammer only to find it whole again the next morning, the mirror remains in place. Its surface now permanently fogged with what staff describe as eternal breath. Whether it serves as a prison for Chloe's spirit, a portal to a liminal space, or a psychic echo chamber for centuries of suffering, one truth persists. The mirror does not merely reflect, it watches and it waits.
Number 4. The Spear of Destiny. Power that corrupts the mind. Forged in the chaos of 1st century Judea, the Spear of Destiny, also known as the Holy Lance, is said to be the very weapon that pierced the side of Christ during the crucifixion. Unlike other relics tied to redemption, however, this artifact carries a far darker legacy, a documented trail of obsession, megalomania, and psychological collapse among those who possessed it. From Constantine the Great to Napoleon Bonaparte, every major historical figure who held the spear claimed it granted unparalleled authority, but at a steep cognitive cost. Adolf Hitler, perhaps its most infamous modern custodian, became so fixated on the lance after seeing it in Vienna's Hofburg Museum that he later orchestrated its seizure during the Anschluss. He reportedly spent hours alone in dimly lit rooms, staring at its rusted tip, muttering about divine mandate and cosmic will. His inner circle noted a marked shift in his behavior post-acquisition, increased paranoia, delusions of invincibility, and a growing disconnection from strategic reality, traits that intensified until his final days in the Berlin bunker. The lance itself, composed of an iron blade riveted to a silver gilt shaft, shows metallurgical inconsistencies that baffle experts. Radiocarbon dating of embedded organic residue places it within the correct era, yet spectral analysis reveals trace elements not found on Earth. More disturbing are the psychological effects recorded in controlled studies. In the 1970s, a team of Swiss researchers allowed 10 volunteers to hold replicas, some accurate, some altered. Only those who handled faithful reproductions experienced sudden spikes in dopamine and cortisol, coupled with vivid hallucinations of battlefields and celestial judgment. One subject, a historian with no prior mental health issues, became convinced he was Charlemagne reincarnated and had to be sedated. The original spear now resides in Vienna's Weltliche Schatzkammer, encased in bulletproof glass. Yet even at a distance, visitors report disorientation, time distortion, and intrusive thoughts of absolute power. Security logs document dozens of individuals attempting to breach the display, not to steal it, but to feel its truth. Neurologists speculate the lance may act as a psychoactive catalyst, amplifying latent authoritarian impulses or triggering archetypal delusions rooted in Jungian collective unconsciousness. Whether it is truly the instrument of divine sacrifice or something far older, a talisman of primordial dominion, remains unknown. But history offers a chilling consensus. To wield the spear of destiny is not to gain power, but to surrender one's mind to it.
Number 5. The Hand of Glory, a thief's tool that silences the soul. Hidden in the vaults of the Whitby Museum in North Yorkshire lies a desiccated human hand, severed at the wrist, its fingers curled as if still clutching the air. Preserved through unknown means, its skin is leathery and dark, stained with what appears to be centuries of tallow and ash. This is the Hand of Glory, a macabre artifact steeped in medieval sorcery, said to be crafted from the hanged criminal whose final breath coincided with a solar eclipse. Folklore claims that when a candle made from the fat of the same corpse is placed in its grasp and lit, the hand emits a greenish flame that renders all who witness it paralyzed, mute, and blind to its bearer. But the true horror of the Hand of Glory lies not in its mythical powers, but in its documented psychological toll on those who have handled it. In 1791, a French antiquarian named Etienne Moreau acquired a similar relic from a condemned sorcerer in Provence. Within weeks, Moreau began exhibiting signs of severe dissociation. He stopped recognizing his own reflection, spoke only in riddles drawn from grimoires, and claimed the hand whispered the language of doors. He vanished one night, leaving behind a journal filled with frantic sketches of locked rooms and the repeated phrase, "It opens everything but the mind." Modern forensic examination of the Whitby specimen reveals embedded microfragments of mandrake root and belladonna residue, both potent hallucinogens, suggesting the hand may have been ritually anointed to induce trance states in its users.
However, spectral analysis also detected anomalous electromagnetic fields localized around the fingertips, pulsing at frequencies known to disrupt neural coherence in the human brain. Volunteers in controlled exposure trials reported immediate sensations of auditory dampening as if the world had been wrapped in wool, followed by vivid dreams of walking through endless corridors of locked doors. One participant, after only 90 seconds of proximity, suffered permanent tinnitus and developed a phobia of silence so acute he required constant background noise to function. More unsettling are police records from 19th century England linking several unsolved burglaries to a silent intruder who left no footprints and triggered no alarms, only the faint smell of burnt wax and a single black candle stub found smoldering on the floor. The Hand of Glory remains on display under dim lighting, its case unmarked except for a small placard reading, "Do not touch." Yet museum staff admit that security cameras occasionally capture the hand's fingers' shifting position between frames, and that night guards refuse to pass its exhibit alone. Whether it is a crude psychological weapon, a conduit for infrasonic manipulation, or something that truly bends the laws of perception, one truth echoes through the centuries. The Hand of Glory does not steal gold. It steals the very sense of self.
Number 6. The Cursed Idol of Doom, the Gerosha Statuette. In 1934, a small bronze statuette surfaced in the private collection of British archaeologist Sir Reginald Gerosha, who claimed to have unearthed it during an unauthorized dig near the ruins of an uncharted temple in the Taklamakan Desert. Standing just 9 inches tall, the idol depicted a humanoid figure with elongated limbs, lidless eyes, and a mouth stretched in a silent scream. Its surface was etched with glyphs resembling no known script, neither Sumerian, Indus Valley, nor any proto-language in the academic canon. Gerosha documented in his journal that the moment he touched the artifact, a coldness entered my bones, and the stars themselves seemed to go quiet. Within a month he was dead, found in his study with his eyes gouged out and his fingers broken as if he had tried to claw the idol apart. The piece passed to his nephew, a Cambridge lecturer, who exhibited it in a campus showcase. Over the next 6 weeks, 3 students who viewed the display committed suicide, each leaving notes filled with frantic, repetitive drawings of the idol's face and the phrase, "It sees me even when I blink." After the 3rd death, authorities seized the object, only for it to vanish from a locked evidence room, reappearing 2 years later in a Parisian occult shop, where its owner was discovered mummified at his desk, his skin dry as parchment, his final journal entry reading, "It does not sleep, it watches through the cracks in time." Scientific analysis conducted during a brief government custody in 1952 yielded baffling results. The bronze contained isotopes of copper and tin, with decay signatures inconsistent with terrestrial mining, and neutron activation revealed trace amounts of iridium, typically associated with meteoritic material. More disturbingly, EEG tests on subjects shown images of the idol triggered synchronized gamma wave bursts across the visual and fear-processing regions of the brain, a pattern usually seen only in extreme trauma or psychedelic overdose. One neurologist described the response as the brain trying to reject what the eyes insist is real. The idol's current location is unknown, though anonymous tips to paranormal researchers suggest it is held by a secretive order in the Swiss Alps, kept submerged in oil and wrapped in lead-lined cloth. Digital recreations, even low-resolution sketches, have reportedly caused nausea, temporary blindness, and intense feelings of being observed in quiet rooms. Unlike other cursed objects that induce madness through sound or touch, the Gerosha idol operates purely through sight. Its power lies not in what it does, but in what it forces the mind to acknowledge.
that some things were never meant to be seen, and once witnessed can never be unseen.
Number 7. The Devil's Bible, Codex Gigas, and the Price of Knowledge. Locked within the vaults of Sweden's National Library in Stockholm resides a tome so massive it requires 2 men to lift it, a 165-pound manuscript known as the Codex Gigas, or the Devil's Bible. Created in the early 13th century by a Benedictine monk named Hermann Inclusus, legend claims he sold his soul to Satan to complete the book in a single night after being sentenced to be walled alive for breaking monastic vows. Whether born of desperation or damnation, the Codex contains the entirety of the Vulgate Bible, medical texts, historical chronicles, and a full-page illustration of the devil himself, his eyes hollow, his claws extended, standing alone against a field of red. But it is not the infernal image that drives men to madness. It is the silence that follows prolonged exposure. Scholars who study the manuscript report an unnerving auditory void, the complete absence of ambient noise, as if the book absorbs sound itself. More insidiously, those who transcribe its pages begin to lose the ability to distinguish their own thoughts from the text. In 1976, a Czech linguist working on a translation developed glossolalia, speaking in a guttural, non-human tongue, and was found days later attempting to rewrite his own skin with ink made from his blood. The Codex's Latin is deceptively standard, yet spectral imaging has revealed hidden layers beneath the ink, microglyphs that shift position under ultraviolet light, forming patterns that resemble neural pathways or celestial maps. When digitized in 2007, computer algorithms analyzing the manuscript's letter frequency detected recursive anomalies, sequences that shouldn't exist in any human language, yet repeat with mathematical precision. Volunteers shown only the devil's portrait for 30 seconds registered elevated levels of cortisol and a 40% spike in heart rate variability, consistent with acute terror. One participant, a seasoned historian, refused to sleep with the lights off for months afterward, insisting his eyes followed me into dreams. The most chilling detail, however, lies in the book's provenance. Every known owner, from Holy Roman emperors to Nazi occultists, has either died violently, vanished, or descended into paranoid isolation. Even today, librarians limit handling to once per month, always wearing gloves, always in pairs. They claim the parchment grows warmer the longer it is open, and that on certain nights, always the same date recorded in Hermann's original confession, it emits a low hum just below the threshold of hearing that leaves staff disoriented for hours. The Codex Gigas does not curse through touch or sight alone. It infects the mind with the weight of forbidden knowing, the unbearable truth that some knowledge was never meant to be held by mortal hands. Number 8. The Crying Boy Painting, Mass Hysteria in Oil and Canvas. In the late 1950s, mass-produced prints of an Italian painting titled The Crying Boy, attributed to artist Giovanni Bragolin, flooded British homes as inexpensive decor. Depicting a cherubic young boy with tear-streaked cheeks and hauntingly vacant eyes, the image was initially dismissed as kitsch until a disturbing pattern emerged. Beginning in 1985, fire investigators across the UK noted an eerie coincidence. In dozens of otherwise inexplicable house fires, the only object left untouched by the flames was the Crying Boy print, often found hanging perfectly intact amid total devastation. More unsettling were the eyewitness accounts from survivors and first responders. Many reported hearing a child sobbing before the blaze erupted, or experienced sudden, overwhelming despair upon looking at the painting. One firefighter, after recovering a pristine copy from a charred living room, developed acute agoraphobia and was later diagnosed with complex PTSD stemming from a presence that watched from the smoke. The phenomenon escalated into a national moral panic, with newspapers stoking fears of a cursed image. People burned their prints in the streets, yet new copies kept appearing, sometimes mailed anonymously, other times discovered tucked into library books or left on park benches. Psychological studies conducted in the 1990s attempted to debunk the hysteria, suggesting pareidolia, the brain's tendency to see faces in random patterns, combined with media amplification. But controlled exposure trials yielded unexpected results. Subjects shown the image exhibited elevated stress markers and, in 17% of cases, vivid intrusive thoughts of abandonment and grief unrelated to their personal history. Infrared analysis later revealed that the original paintings contained a unique pigment blend incorporating bone ash and a rare Mediterranean clay laced with trace lithium, a mineral known to affect mood stability at high doses, though not in quantities present here. The true origin of the boy's face remains disputed. Some claim it was based on an orphan Bragaline adopted who later died in a fire, while others point to archival photos suggesting the model was a composite of multiple children who perished in wartime bombings. Regardless of its source, the painting's psychological imprint persists. Even today, digital reproductions shared online occasionally trigger reports of sudden melancholy, sleep disturbances, and, most ominously, unexplained electrical malfunctions in devices displaying the image. The crying boy does not speak, move, or bleed. It simply weeps. And in its silent tears lies a contagion of sorrow so potent it has scorched homes, shattered minds, and left an entire generation wary of a child's face on the wall.
Number 9. The Annabelle Doll, a gateway dressed as innocence. Stored within a glass case at the Warrens Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut, sits a porcelain-faced Raggedy Ann doll, faded red yarn hair, button eyes, stitched smile, that appears harmless, even quaint. Yet behind that placid expression lies one of the most documented cases of object-based spiritual attachment in modern paranormal history. In 1970, a nursing student named Donna accepted the doll as a birthday gift from her mother. Within days, she and her roommate began experiencing impossible phenomena. The doll would reappear in rooms it hadn't been left in, its head turning when no one was present, and scribbled notes found beneath pillows reading, "Help me," and "Go home," in a child's handwriting, though neither woman had written them. More disturbing were the physical attacks, deep claw-like scratches appearing on their skin, unexplained bruising, and the sensation of being choked in their sleep. Parapsychologists initially dismissed the case as shared psychosis until a visiting priest reported being shoved down a staircase by an unseen force while blessing the apartment. The doll was eventually given to demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren, who claimed it housed not a ghost, but a deceptive, inhuman entity masquerading as a lost child named Annabelle Higgins. Unlike traditional hauntings tied to location, this entity demonstrated mobility and intent, capable of influencing individuals far from its physical form. One museum visitor, after mocking the display, collapsed hours later with seizures and later died of a brain hemorrhage. His final words were, "She's sitting on my chest." Scientific analysis of the doll revealed no hidden mechanisms, yet EMF readings around it consistently spike into ranges associated with temporal lobe stimulation, a known trigger for out-of-body experiences and demonic hallucinations. Perhaps most alarming is the doll's ability to bypass rational skepticism. Even hardened skeptics who spend more than 5 minutes in its presence report sudden emotional distress, intrusive thoughts of self-harm, and the overwhelming conviction that someone is watching from inside the glass. Infrared footage from the museum's security system has captured the doll's head rotating slowly when no staff are present, though conservators insist the case is sealed and vibration dampened. The Warrens maintain that the entity within Annabelle doesn't merely haunt, it learns, adapts, and feeds on fear, growing stronger with each emotional reaction it provokes. Whether it is a tulpa given form by collective belief, a demonic intelligence exploiting a vessel, or something far older using the guise of childhood innocence, one fact remains uncontested. Annabelle is not a doll, it is a door, and something is still knocking from the other side.
Number 10. The Stone of Scone, Crown, Curse, and Collective Delusion. Beneath the polished limestone of Westminster Abbey, and now returned to Scottish soil under armed guard in Edinburgh Castle, rests the Stone of Scone, also known as the Stone of Destiny, a block of pale sandstone measuring 26 inches long and weighing 335 pounds. To historians, it is a coronation relic upon which Scottish and later English monarchs have been crowned since at least the 9th century. To mystics, it is the very stone Jacob used as a pillow when he dreamed of a ladder to heaven. But to those who have studied its hidden history, it is something far more unsettling, an object that bends the minds of nations. The stone's curse, unlike others on this list, operates not through personal terror, but through the slow corrosion of judgment in those who wield power near it. Every monarch crowned upon it has faced extraordinary turmoil. Edward I, who stole it in 1296, died in ignominy on a failed crusade. Charles I, crowned atop it, lost his head to the executioner's axe. Edward VIII, the last king to sit upon it, abdicated under mysterious pressure after less than a year. Modern analysis reveals nothing anomalous in its composition, just ordinary old red sandstone from the Perthshire region. And yet, declassified MI5 files from the 1950s detail psychological evaluations of the 4 Scottish students who famously stole the stone in 1950. All 4 reported recurring nightmares of being buried alive beneath a throne, and 2 later developed clinical paranoia, convinced MI6 was monitoring their thoughts. More baffling is the stone's uncanny resilience. When it was dropped during its 1950 theft, it fractured into 2 pieces. Geologists confirmed the break was genuine, but when reassembled, the fracture line vanished under spectral imaging, as if the stone had healed itself. EEG studies of volunteers shown fragments of the stone, under strict supervision, revealed unusual synchronization between the amygdala and the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the brain's fear and authority centers, suggesting exposure primes the mind for hierarchical submission or authoritarian delusion. Even stranger are the cultural echoes. Public opinion polls conducted on coronation days consistently show spikes in nationalistic fervor, coupled with temporary drops in critical thinking metrics across media consumption. The stone does not whisper, it does not bleed, it does not move. Yet for over 1,000 years it has sat at the heart of empires, silently shaping the psyches of kings and the collective consciousness of nations. Perhaps its true curse is not madness in the individual, but the belief that power is divine, and that some stones were meant to bear the weight of crowns, even as they crush the minds beneath them.